Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Living Well or Trying to. I'm your host, Janet. Today's conversation is with Rosa Li from Wildwonder. It is a part two of a two-part conversation where we talk about gut health, Chinese tonics, and her journey as an entrepreneur creating a drink that is both tasty and good for you. If you haven't already, tune into the first part of the episode, which released last week, and then come back here and listen to the rest of the conversation that you're about to get into.
And I looked at him, my immediate reaction was like, "Oh, so you're working part-time." And
Yeah.
that was it's just so crazy to me to think back because 60 hours a week to me was part-time because,
Yeah, yeah,
in finance, I was working 100-hour weeks.
yeah,
Obviously not healthy, I'm not advocating for that, but I think it's just, every job has a different expectation.
yeah.
I didn't set boundaries for myself, even though I learned a lot and I worked on some really interesting deals. What was the consequence of that, right?
Yeah.
So that definitely had an impact on my health and wellness. So now there's definitely boundaries that I set.
y-
And sleep is actually one of those things that's a non-negotiable for me. So sleep, activities like doing something active each day, getting some sun and just hydration and getting good nutrients in my body. I think they sound so simple, but
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
actually not easy to consistently like maintain.
yeah. Do you
So,
feel like it's interesting that you're saying the boundaries, the way that you're implementing is adding behaviors
mhm.
versus focusing on stopping work? So it sounds to me like the way that you've maintained your wellness and your boundaries is
Mhm.
making sure that your physical health is taken care of,
Right.
but maybe your hours that you're working or that at the time that you're thinking about your business is still kind of 24/7, is it?
Well, so I do work fewer hours. I
Mm,
would say, obviously, if I'm implementing more things, certain
it's
things
taking
need
up your
to
time.
give, right?
Yeah.
So, if I'm saying, hey, I need to be in bed by 11, I can't keep working after that.
Yeah.
So, I do think that I have set boundaries in terms of work hours. But again, like, I think everyone's boundaries are different. So, it's all about, you mentioned burnout. I
Yeah.
can pretty easily feel when I'm close to burnout and I will
Mm,
stop and I will do things to make me feel energized again to reset. So maybe it's like taking a weekend trip somewhere or
mm,
even just getting out in nature for a day. That really helps me. So
yeah.
I try to basically not touch work for at least one day on the weekend. And it's like, as a founder, it is a little bit hard to achieve because I don't work, 40-hour weeks.
Yeah.
But it doesn't
How many
feel,
hours would you say you work now,
oh
and how
gosh,
does your
um, how many hours? I think it kind of is a blur. So it's probably, I'm averaging about 60. Um, Also depends on the week.
Yeah, 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 a lot of variability.
So, I definitely put in some evening hours. I definitely put in weekend hours. But I think what's important is not to focus so much on the hours, is actually focusing on how I feel
Mm,
mentally, emotionally, and physically. So if I feel more exhausted, I will rest more.
yeah.
But I feel energized by my work. So I'm not,
Mm,
like I think it's pretty hard for me to get to burnout because I just love it so much and I don't love every part of it. There's definitely things I'm like, "Oh man, like I'm still spending time on these like admin work that I don't necessarily see the immediate impact of."
yeah.
But because I have this kind of greater sense of purpose and
Mm,
there is a North Star that kind of drives me. So for me, like, I actually enjoy problem solving. I
mm.
enjoy, a lot of the work I do.
So you're stimulated by it. Yeah,
Totally. And
yeah.
I think if it doesn't feel like work, then less likely for me to feel burnout. It's
Mm,
just more enjoyable. It's not the same as taking a vacation, but I also do enjoy. It's almost like people like to read on the weekends, right? Or
yeah.
people like to do different things for either like self-improvement or working on new skill sets. And that to me is kind of the type of energy that work gives me is I'm solving new problems. I'm also learning new things every day.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit before about the similarities of like Wall Street
Yeah.
and of being an entrepreneur and of being in the food and bev space, how they tend to be very like, um, you're kind of always putting out fires. It's very intense work environments,
Yeah.
but they're also all very male dominated generally.
Right, right.
And I'm curious, like, how do you think operating in those three different spaces for you has
Mhm.
impacted the way you work, which you kind of have already talked about a little bit, but maybe
Yeah.
just like the things that you value or
Yeah.
like personality traits.
Yeah, definitely. I actually thought a lot about this because I don't know, I guess I never worked in female dominated industries. Like it's
Yeah.
always been very male dominated. Beverage itself is very broy. So like
Mm,
a lot of people in beverage are white male. And if you look at the people who run large beverages, they're, not diverse. So, I do think about how, I mean, obviously I can't change who I am or the cards I'm dealt with,
yeah.
but like I do focus on what are some advantages or assets I have that other people don't have. I really love what Brene Brown talked about is the power of vulnerability.
Mm,
And that's something that I've actually learned is like, obviously, I'm just a more emotional person.
yeah.
And how do I showcase that in a way that is authentic and
Mm,
also um I guess helps with building relationships. So
yeah.
I like to implement that in work with my team. I also like to implement that in just generally the way I build relationships. Maybe it's with customers, maybe is like in general, anyone in the industry, friends, family is like I think there's a lot of things that I undervalued before that
Mm,
now are actually strength, not necessarily
yeah.
weaknesses.
What's like an example of something, either like a situation that happened or like
Hmm.
a way that that comes out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just sharing um, the ups and downs that we go through every
Mm,
day with running a business. So, like, whenever there is an issue I'm dealing with, I like to share that with the team and get everyone's input on
yeah.
things, right? Like, there's a challenge about our growth or there's a challenge about our product. How do we communicate that and how do we solve it together?
Mm,
Because I used to be afraid of showing a sign of weakness. Oh, what if my team thinks that Rosa doesn't know where we're
like have the
going,
answer.
right?
Mm,
And I always thought that might discourage people. Maybe they might lose confidence, but I actually think is really empowering for everyone to feel like they're part of a team. They're part
mm.
of solving the problem together.
So being able to be vulnerable with them to say like, this is
Mm-hmm.
something I'm experiencing. I don't have the answer. Let's figure
Right.
this out together is something that's like a
Totally.
vulnerability. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about how that might play a role in your personal life as well.
Mm-hmm.
You are obviously an incredibly busy, strong woman, as a CEO and as a founder. Like, how do you find that that translates into your personal life when dating? Because we were just talking about before this episode of the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
challenges of dating. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and honestly, I separate my, professional and personal life pretty well. I don't usually talk about work problems
mm,
in my personal life, and I do think it's important to set certain boundaries,
yeah,
because I personally don't want when I'm at home, I don't want to have to talk about work that much, and I think it just needs to flow more naturally,
yeah.
so that's my way of, like, unplugging is, um really focusing on the person I'm dating and not talking about work or not sharing
Yeah.
about all the worries
Can I
related
ask
to
if you
work.
are you in a relationship or are you like actively dating on the
I
apps
am
or?
dating.
Mm.
I am in I guess, the early stage of seeing
Oh,
someone.
yeah. Did you meet them like or how did you meet them?
Okay, dating apps. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, how else do we meet people? I actually try to get out more and I think meet people in real life.
Yeah.
I had dated someone previously. So last year, when one of my friends set me up with someone,
Oh.
and so I was doing long distance
Oh, that's
relationship,
hard. Yeah.
which yeah, definitely adds an extra layer of complexity to dating.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination. How am I meeting people? Is a combination of dating apps, being introduced. I think just putting myself out there, and I
Yeah.
actually love meeting people, and I love getting to know people. So that part is enjoyable because I'm always curious about other people.
Yeah.
The part that's hard is actually deepening that connection because
Mm.
if I don't feel emotionally connected to someone, it's not as exciting.
Is it do you find that guys are intimidated by you? Like, did you ever have that issue when you're, like, meeting
I
in
think
the
that you have to ask them. I
Yeah.
don't know. I never thought about it like that, actually.
Or, like,
I
also with guys, do you find that you have a type of,
interesting.
do you like someone who's also, like, a high power entrepreneur? Do you like someone who, like, what is your
Yeah.
type?
Actually, this might be related to your previous question about like, do people find me intimidating? I am generally attracted to confident people.
Mm,
So positive, confident people, because I'm that way.
yeah.
So, for people who are very positive and confident, they probably don't find me intimidating. I I've generally dated a lot of creative, entrepreneurial people as well. Definitely founders too.
Yeah.
Um, there's probably just shared interest in creating impact, shared interest in making something better,
Yeah, yeah.
or building a business. So it's probably easier to connect with people who are more similar to me,
Yeah.
with similar aspirations.
Do you find that, like, you connect with other entrepreneurs who came from a finance background? Because there's a lot of different types of founders with a lot of different
Yeah,
types of
yeah, I
backgrounds,
definitely
right?
connect with people who are generally pretty financially savvy. Like,
Yeah.
I think you kind of need to speak the same language.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I also dated a lot of people of like different backgrounds, like from software engineers to finance, to product managers, founders. I mean, it's hard to categorize people
Yeah.
in a specific profession because I can categorize more easily by personality types.
Mm,
Because people change jobs all the time, right?
yeah.
People change their professions. They might be working at a large tech company now, but have entrepreneurial aspirations, or maybe they came from a startup, they built something, now they're working at a different place.
Yeah.
So I think generally I'm just very attracted to like people who are positive,
Mm,
have a positive outlook on life, confident, driven by impact,
mm,
kind people. Like
yeah.
first foremost is kindness and integrity, obviously.
Yeah.
So um yeah, I don't, there's not really a type.
So it's more of a personality thing
Yeah.
versus yeah. I mean, so you talked about kind of, people who maybe are coming from an entrepreneurial perspective, maybe thinking about going back into corporate or something like
Hmm.
that. Is that ever something that you think about? Like, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that transition from working on
Yeah.
Wall Street, going to working for yourself. Along the journey of entrepreneurship, as we talked about, there's so many ups and downs.
Right.
Have you ever had moments where you're like, I think I'm gonna go back to finance or go back to working for someone else?
To be honest, never thought about it.
Ah,
There was a brief moment. So, I launched this business in COVID, like
yeah.
literally at the onset of COVID. So, I made a joke with my friends because I started selling the drinks to these corporate offices. So, Google, Meta, LinkedIn, they had large orders, and we had sent large orders out to them. And all of a sudden, COVID happened and wiped out that entire space because people were working from home,
Yeah.
and it just basically wiped out our business right after I launched. So I made a joke with my friends, and I said, "Well, I guess instead of selling products to Google, I could just work at Google, and get a job there. That would
Yeah.
be much easier, and no one would blame me for, shutting down my business because of COVID."
Yeah.
And I mean, but that thought lasted for like 5 minutes.
Mm,
So I like I said, I truly enjoy what I do.
yeah.
So, and I don't like to think about plan B when I have a plan A. So I like to
Mm,
just focus on the plan A. If I no longer have plan A, I will think about plan Bs.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm just one of those people that I love focus, and if I like what I do, I don't really think about, okay, what else should I be
You don't
doing?
waver.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I also believe that if the minute I have plan Bs, my plan A probably won't work because I'm
Ah.
distracted.
Mm,
So like if my energy and my mind share is focused on what are all the other options, what are my plan Bs, I'm not as focused on plan A. And if I actually think to myself, I have no other choice, I will do everything I can to make my plan A work.
mm,
So I think that's what made, I guess, the first 5 years of the business work, because there's definitely a lot of ups and downs. There's
yeah.
definitely multiple times. Um, Gosh, more than a handful of times when I thought, "Hey, there might not be a tomorrow."
Yeah.
So, um, but I do think that mentality has worked very well in my favor is like if I
Yeah.
just focus on solving the problem and I don't think about other potential options or choices and I
Mm.
gave myself no choice, then, it worked.
Yeah. So you really just, it's like locking in is a term that I've heard a lot of people say. You just focus in very
Mhm.
hard and you don't give yourself the option to have any other options.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
And do you find that that actually helps you qualm some of the anxiety? Because I think maybe a lot of times when people have like a backup plan, it's out of fear, right? Like that
Mm.
something won't work out.
Yeah, I do think, um, it's interesting because I definitely believe in diversification. I think even
Mm.
as a business strategy,
Right.
like um, we've we've diversified our supply chain, we've diversified our channel strategy, we've diversified basically a lot of risks in running a business and building a brand. I think that's important.
Mm.
And for people who I think if they're not enjoying something, I think it's important to diversify. I think it's
Mm.
important to explore and gain new skill sets. And it's not to say, hey, just like keep grinding at a thing that
Is not
doesn't,
working.
yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't make you happy, right? It isn't working. It's like, that would be very sad. So, um, I think it's because I enjoy what I do.
Mm.
And I do think about how do we expand on this? Like, it's not to say this is like the one thing I do, and I'm not gonna, maybe it's not a diversion, but complementary to what I do
Mm.
now.
Yeah.
That may be viewed as like diversifying. So it could be spending more time on social media.
Mm.
My team has been pushing me to do more of
Yeah.
that, and I guess that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Instead of just, focus on building in the way I used to build.
Mm.
And maybe it is doing more speaking events to share our story, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That I used to view as like a distraction to my business
Mm.
because I'm not as focused on operations.
Yeah, yeah.
But now it's more important that we, do more marketing, tell more of our story so
Yeah.
people understand where this comes from. I think there's a lot of things are complementary. That's not, you know, taking away the focus. But there's also things that truly are a different path that I
Yeah, yeah.
don't usually think about.
Got it. I want to go back now to talking a little bit more about your personal life. So, you talked about your dating and things
hmm
like that. For someone who is running a company, do you ever think about what your family life might be like? Like, do you want to start a
Yeah,
family?
that's a
How do
great
you ever think
question.
about how that might impact, your freedom right now to really just focus in on your work and building your brand and your company?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want a family. I want kids. I don't have kids now. How do I think that's going to impact? Um, and this might sound naive as someone who doesn't have kids yet, and because I do see a lot of my friends who are parents are constantly feeling exhausted, but I actually feel that having a family and having kids will make me a better leader.
Mm.
Um, and vice versa too. Like I think being running a company, having a team also makes me a better parent.
Yeah.
Um, and the reason I say that is because I would say right now, or how I started, I had a north star. I have my own goals. I'm kind of just doing this for myself. I'm doing this with a mission in mind, but I don't need to take care of anyone else,
Mm.
right? So, um, in a way, it's a selfish endeavor because if something fails, it impacts me the most. Whereas if I have a family, then I do have a desire to provide for my family. So
Yeah.
that would actually be a higher motivation for me. So I
Mm.
think in that way, it would make me think harder about my actions
Yeah.
and making sure that, like I do everything with integrity. I do everything with a probably like greater future in mind,
Mm.
better decision making, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
Not to say like, the decisions weren't good, but it's more just I do think that the motivating factors are going to be different
Mm.
and it's actually more motivating for me to do something for, my family than just myself.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I actually think I'm very energized by the idea or the prospect of having a family. It's not
Yeah.
like oh, I'm scared about that or how that's going
Mm,
to impact the business in the business in any negative way. I actually think if anything is a positive.
mm,
Um, and vice versa too. I think having being a leader and having managed teams that also can make me a better parent.
yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so
Oh, thank
great.
you.
Talking about meaning,
Uh-huh.
you have done so many things in the lifetime of Wild Wonder.
Hmm.
You, or even beyond that, you were on Shark Tank. You're currently on the Tory Burch Foundation. I mean,
Hmm.
even going back before that, you were a
Yeah.
Fulbright scholar. You have experienced so much
Hmm.
greatness in your journey. Which of those things has been like the most meaningful to you and why?
Oh man. I mean, I think everything um is part of like what made this journey so fun
Mm,
and meaningful. I would say, the most like interesting talking points is definitely Shark Tank.
yeah.
Everyone's so curious about, oh my gosh, what happens behind those closed doors? And what is it like to talk to the sharks? And that was such
Mm,
a life-changing experience for me for the business.
yeah.
Truly life-changing. And I definitely encourage everyone who has a consumer product to do that. Um, I think from a meaning perspective, building a team and building a brand to feel the impact
Mm,
on people, that's been very meaningful to me. Um, we definitely get like a lot of really cool customer testimonials about how this has changed their lives and how
mm,
like, it's a simple drink. And I'm not a doctor who's, saving lives and from that perspective, but it's great to hear when someone says, "Hey, like I had gut health issues, I had all these problems, now I feel better."
mm,
So that's very heartwarming.
yeah.
Or even seeing how my team grows. That's also been heartwarming. So I think it's nice to feel that, hey, I'm providing opportunities for other people. I'm providing
Mm,
opportunities for my team to grow and learn. I'm providing opportunities for other people to live better lives.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most. It's impact on people. That's
Mm,
the most impact and it's most meaningful to me.
yeah.
But like, I mean, every single experience till this day has made me who I am, and even even the grind and like back in banking
Mm.
or all the travel experiences I got to enjoy from work, even though it was exhausting. I do think those were some really memorable experiences for me.
Well, I mean, I would love to now talk a little bit about Wild Wonder and some of the
Hmm.
flavors that we have that you brought, and then also
Yeah.
any upcoming projects that you're like, what are you working
Okay.
on now?
There's so
Or
many things.
yeah.
um, Gosh, well, we just launched. I don't know if you tried the cherry lemonade. That one we just launched this new product, collaborated with another female founded brand called Le Mini Macaron, and that's been doing super well. I mean, it's just expanding to Whole Foods and Sprouts and a lot of these retailers. We are working on a really cool holiday flavor. That's going
Oh.
to be a limited edition flavor. That's the other reason I'm in LA. We just did a production around here, and that taste is spectacular. I'll actually give you a first taste after this. We just
Yeah.
can't reveal it yet.
Okay, we can't talk about actually, I was curious, like, how do you come up with the new flavors? Like, what
Hmm.
are what are some of the things that
It's a team effort. So
yeah.
we look at market insights. We look at what's trending. We also look at what our customers want. So we
Mm.
do a lot of surveys. Most importantly, it's honestly a gut feeling. So,
Ah, yeah.
and I think about our lineup, and I think about the flavor combination. So, not only um, what pairs well together, but also like what makes the most sense from a mission perspective. So,
Mm,
our flavors are very unique. We're not doing any soda flavors like what a lot of these people are doing, like not root beer or cola. I think there's enough brands doing that.
yeah.
So we bring out unique flavors, but also mainstream flavors. So it's not too niche that people don't want to taste it anymore, but it's also not too mainstream or mass that is not differentiating. So
Mm,
if you look at our flavor profiles, there's always something that's a little more interesting paired with something that's more familiar. Like the
yeah,
raspberry lychee, that's kind of a East meets West combination.
yeah.
And so yeah, it's a lot of discussion with the team. Everyone, um, we put our heads together and we still do everything internally. Formulation is
Mm,
done by Wildwonder team members, not by any flavor house. It's not outsourced because this is our specialty. We make we're very good at making it taste delicious, unique, just very much a delightful experience.
yeah. Well, I love what you said about you do a lot of research, you look at trends, but at the end of the day, you go with your gut.
Mhm.
And that's probably the most important thing or
Yeah,
message for anyone out there, whether they're running a business or making any type of decisions in life.
totally, totally.
Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners? Where can they find you if they want to either get your product or find you
Yeah.
online?
Well, our website is drinkwildwonder.com. Our social media is Drink Wild Wonder. So definitely get in touch, follow our journey. We would love to hear from everyone who's tried our products, who hasn't tried. Um, there's a store locator on our website, so you
Oh,
can
yeah.
actually find stores near you on our website by just typing in your zip code. But we're national. We're national with Whole Foods and Sprouts. We're also regional with Target, Walmart, Kroger, Albertson, Safeway. A lot of these regional retailers, like in LA, Irwan, Mothers. Yeah, so the website has a lot of that information.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming here,
Thank you for
Rosa. It was
having me.
a great conversation.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Living Well or Trying to. If you don't already, please follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It means so much to me that my new episodes will just pop up in your feed. And if you like what you're hearing and seeing, please leave a rating and review. It means so much for a small content creator like myself in this world that is so saturated now to be able to have some feedback from all of you. As always, I so appreciate you. Thank you for lending me your ears, your eyes, your presence, and your attention, especially in today's world when there are so many other places that you could be giving it to. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and I hope to catch you on another episode.